Hi, this is your host Shubham Tiwari, and I welcome you to Education Plus, a show brought to you by Wonderslate Technologies, where we bring to you some of the most eminent personalities from the education industry, who in turn bring their invaluable perspective for the benefit of us all. Our today's guest is the founder director at the Orchid School and the program coordinator at Sweden India project. Ms. Lakshmi Kumar, welcome to Wonderpublish magazine.
Thank you. Thank you, Shubham. Such a pleasure to be part of this.
We're glad to have you, ma'am. So, you have been in this industry for the longest time, and you're about to complete your 28th year in the education sector. It's amazing. First of all, congratulations to you. So, and in order to start this conversation on a philosophical note, please tell us what has been the most satisfying aspect of your journey.
Thank you, Shubham, for this opportunity for sharing my insights. To start with, this 28 years of experience has got, in some ways, in the pandemic time, to ground zero.
Really?
Yeah, because we haven't run schools in this context at all. While I can bank upon some insight and wisdom, I am absolutely 2-year-old in the education field in the pandemic times. That kind of puts us all on an equal platform. And the satisfying thing about being in education industry is that you never stop learning and you never
Right.
get complacent, and that year on year, it looks like it's the same students, but year on year it's a new context, new batch of students, and the newer challenges, and revisiting assumptions. So you are on your toes. I think that's the most satisfying element that no other profession gives, that that there is no room for complacence.
Correct. And as you spoke about, the kids who year on a year they go through the school. So, are you worried about the students who are going through school in the COVID times because they are not getting regular classes, regular activities?
I have concerns, but I know that we will bring in the resilience to bounce back. Yes, it has deprived 2 years of schooling. They may have education,
Right.
but schooling is much more than education. So they have been deprived of that. And especially for young toddlers who have just entered, they haven't had that experience
Experience.
of
Yeah.
being in an informal setting. But I think we need to bring in the attitude of resilience, and pick up our threads and see what we can do best, and set our priorities.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
And again, I often say that that as educators we have a choice to react or respond. More we choose the second choice of response, I think we will not press the panic button.
Right. That's true. So, speaking of your other major role, ma'am, you're the program coordinator at Sweden India project for a very long time. I guess you started in 1994.
Yes.
Yes. So, please tell us about what is this project, first of all.
In 92, I went to Sweden on a Swedish Institute scholarship to study comparative family structures, because I come from the
Okay.
mental health background.
Yep.
So I'm a trained social worker. I was working with counseling families. And while I was there, I had this, experience of being unwell, feeling isolated, or in 92, it wasn't that universities had many people from our part of the world. And especially my experience with healthcare there gave me some thoughts about how immigrants must be experiencing an entire welfare system.
Right.
Since I was attached to the social work department, I began to have these conversations. And because for immigrants and refugees, The first touch point is social worker. So I said, is there any kind of sensitization? Is there any kind of awareness for social workers to support people from other cultures? And there wasn't any. And I said, that isn't that very important? Because if you're talking about immigration integration, it has to be based on mutual respect. It has to be based on not conversion and not, leave out your culture out, but an assimilation element. So, and that was also the year when Latur earthquake happened in India, 92. And we had a bunch of social work students here. And obviously, they were just sent here without much preparation. And there was a lot of culture clash that happened. And then the students went back with this conclusion that India doesn't agree with them. And I felt that no culture agrees with you or disagrees with you. It is me as a visitor who need to appreciate and adapt to cultures and accommodate. So I made a proposal to the university that, let's bridge this culture gap. And so 94, I started this formal training of social workers under the banner of SwedenIndia project. And then we had nurses sometimes, then it moved to the teachers because, classrooms, especially in Sweden, when the migration was, post, the Bosnia, Serbia war, there was a lot of migration. Then there was a lot from Turkey, Iran, Iraq, and Kurdistan. So you suddenly had a very multicultural classroom setting. And obviously, teachers were not equipped because families deal with education in different dimensions. Families, treat children in different context. So I thought, and schools began to approach me that can we have this international exchange, that our teachers need to get exposure to another culture and how another culture deals with problems. So yeah, it kind of really grew as a wonderful tree, reaching out to culture workers.
So in a way, you have been creating these, leadership roles, and in every school, in terms of sensitizing them with the right attitude towards every kind of culture that they see. So my next question would be, natural one, like what makes for a wholesome educational leader?
I think if I have to just kind of narrow down to 3 attributes, is the first one for me is authenticity. There is no room for fake, just a kind of laid out leadership role, but being authentic to your beliefs, being authentic to the philosophy, and being authentic to your genuine concern for students, and being authentic in the way that we know that education is a great, level playing tool for society building. The second one for me is adaptation. A wholesome leader cannot consider a school as a way of just a template format. This is what we did last year, this is what we did 20 years ago, and we continue.
It's an old template, correct?
Yeah, and that's a very dangerous trend because, as Neil Postman, one of my most favorite authors, says, you cannot run schools by driving from looking through the rear view mirror.
Nice.
It's a very powerful, analogy. So for me, I think the second one is adapt. Embrace change, adapt to the new context, adapt to the newer challenges, and adapt to NEP. A lot of things. Adapt to the societal change. Look at the way that today, fabric is quite fragile in terms of a communal fabric, social fabric, political ideologies. Look at our economic, landscape. Everything is fragile. So I think adapt. That's a second one. Third one is access. Educators have, especially educational leaders, have been sitting on some kind of an ivory tower.
That is
forgetting that that we are here because of our parents. They have put trust, they have given their best, and the only best child in the whole world to us. And, so I think to be accessible and available to stakeholders for conversations, clarifications, and probably listen in, and take inputs from wherever it comes, not bringing in the ego, but in a very professional way, but more in a compassionate way. Be available, be accessible. We can't be so busy that we don't have time to meet our students, our
Correct.
teachers, our parents, or our stakeholders. So I think that's kind of in the accessibility also, then you're demonstrating compassion, you're demonstrating mutual respect, that and you're demonstrating also a lot of empathy, that if a parent has a certain point of view, in your accessibility to have that conversation, you're also granting parent their knowledge or their ignorance.
Correct. It's wonderful. So taking this question of leadership a bit further, do you think that just covering the basics is enough? Because I'm asking in terms of how do you turn a good leader into a great one? Because it's also important to keep on excelling, keep on learning. So how do you become like that next level leader?
I think from a good to great, as our well-known management guru has spoken about, I think what defines us is then the accountability. Are we accountable? Are we genuinely accountable to the results, the outcome, or that we have outsourced a whole lot of learning curve? Today, I recently saw a research survey that talked about a very disturbing fact that nearly 70% of our students go for tuitions.
Yeah.
So what percentage of student success actually depend on the school?
It's
Right?
debatable. Correct.
Yeah, and that accountability is very important. And the second one, good to great, is that, like I said, schooling is very different from education. So reducing the school to just, completing the syllabus and conducting the exams and completing that whole cycle of process is no more about schooling. Schooling is about building a robust school climate and ensuring emotional social well-being of every member in the system, not just the students, but also our staff members
Right.
and our community. And very, very importantly, that whether, at the end of this whole learning curve, our students go out knowing their strengths and weaknesses. So I
Correct.
think to create this roadmap is what makes you from a good to great
Great
leader.
one. It's wonderful, ma'am. And taking you back to your first statement, you said that you are in a way in your second year of education because of this COVID experience that we had. So what future skills do you see that are really, really necessary for an edu leader from this point onward?
Let's put it, as we would have done it for our children: psychomotor, cognitive, affective. I want to use the same framework for educational leaders. Psychomotor not necessarily mean that where we have to develop certain basic skills, but I think we have to sustain self-care,
Right.
and our ability to build our stamina, build our strength, physical strength, and emotional, that comes in the affective. So I think very important is to start with self-care.
Right.
There is no point talking about COVID time and prevention, and that we are not role modeling. So I think that's the first pitch on which I would build the future.
Right.
That take care of yourself, and have some regulatory mechanisms, whether it is about eating, sleeping, screen time, and exercise or yoga, whatever, focus on the breath and calming down, all that. Okay. So I want to expand this whole physical element
Yeah.
to look at self-care. The second one is the cognitive dimension. I think this is where I see that it is not enough to learn technology skill, but more importantly, to understand what kind of technology works with the digital natives. Okay. Uh, to some extent, the 2 years, the digital natives have become digital addicts.
Yeah.
So we probably have to learn the art of balancing, bring back, in a way that, we don't leave the digital, element, but at the same time, what are some core learning cognitive skills that we need to bring back in our classroom? Another one that I see very, very important is in the digital context is that, we probably have missed out on a crucial element called digital literacy. Our children are keyboarding very well, but they're not appropriately literate. And so are the adults. So I think, we need to re-educate ourselves in terms of the cognitive domain. How do children learn? What is the effectiveness of learning, on the hybrid model? And, when do we, switch over from the digital to offline learning? And in the offline learning, how do we set our priorities? So there's a whole lot of cognitive element that we need to revisit. And the third and the most important element is the affective domain for us. That how is my mental health? How is my emotional literacy? And how am I, relating to my colleagues when I come back? And how do I deal with panic and fear? And am I part of the solution or am I part of the problem? I think, this kind of, focus on creating a socially cohesive community is very important. So I think these three elements we need to kind of put it for the students and put it for the faculty and for the leaders.
Right. Wonderful. So, ma'am, Sweden India project is in one way your, testimony to your work, to your lifetime's work. So, and it's such an impactful network now. So my question would be, how do you build such an impactful network in today's time? Because it takes time, first of all. I know it's like 28 years of your life. So, but beyond that, how do you, make a very sustainable, impactful network like Sweden India project?
I think you must have clarity of purpose in whatever you do. Okay. And the purpose needs to have a very clear roadmap. So do you have a plan, right? And three is, are you willing to evaluate and redesign? Because every day, every year, every semester, when students come and go, there is a feedback, either
Yeah.
formal feedback and reports, and and there are informal feedback in the behavior. Whether you're willing to again accommodate that feedback and redesign, that's the third one. And fourth one is, make your work visible.
Hmm.
Because there are people out there, who have very similar interest, who have, maybe done something different, but
Yeah.
they want to connect. But, the digital visibility or the social media visibility again has to be authentic. And it has to also reflect both your success and the failures, because it's all always not about haha, because if you
Yeah.
see the LinkedIn day today,
I was about to come to that.
yeah, it almost feels like everybody's a success story. You rarely really see that setback. So
Yeah.
I think your work need to be made visible as it is and not as some kind of a photoshopped version of it. And above all, be willing to share. Because when you share knowledge, as you share happiness, it is doubled. There is enough room for, so many people to impact.
Yeah.
And when you share knowledge, the corporate has this biggest worry of sharing, and confidentiality is the first thing that they want you to sign. And it's everybody fools like everyone, like a naked emperor. Everybody signs confidentiality agreement, and but everybody is also using the knowledge system. So I think being open to and more willing to share makes the world a better place. I
Yeah.
think that's how you expand. I mean, how did we connect, Shubha? I
Yeah,
didn't.
this is correct.
So it's what you saw on the social media, and
Correct.
then you kind of nitpick on what's our common interest. I think it's that linear roadmap is what I say. But most important is that does it impact lives? Not necessarily in terms of me gathering awards. One step at a time, one person at a time, does it impact?
Right.
I think that connect between the purpose and the outcome. If
Right.
we have that clarity, I think building network falls automatically.
That's wonderful, ma'am. And this is very interesting that you say that being authentic is very important. And LinkedIn has sort of become a very,
Yeah.
it's,
Glossy and yeah.
yeah, so many awards, so
And,
many things.
it's
Yeah.
almost like every day. I sometimes wonder how every day some people are getting award every day,
Yeah.
and then it almost feels toxic. So whereas it's awards can come and go, but what is my work talking?
Absolutely.
I'm talking about my social workers becoming sensitive to meeting the immigrants,
Yeah.
and that's the purpose.
Correct.
That if immigrants need not be converted to the it's like us saying leave all your thoughts before you come into my classroom, come empty. It doesn't happen. People come as whole person. Similarly, even if life situation has forced me to be in a refugee status, I haven't lost myself. I haven't lost my self-respect. And my 10, 20, 50 years of process of socialization has made me who I am. While I adapt to a new culture, I don't have to lose myself. And I
True.
think it's that support I need from the social workers, and social workers are sensitized.
Correct.
And I see that when social workers are here, and they see that how you're in a new culture, and the new culture threatens you, you become intensely your culture.
Yeah.
You
Become
kind of,
reactionary.
yeah, it's very reactionary difference, that you become even more Indian in America,
Yeah.
or even more Swede in India.
Hmm.
And if I have gone through that experience, I can then transfer that in empathic way to my clients. I think it's that clarity of purpose, whether you're in
Right.
education. If I'm going to not have my own purpose of expanding the influence, then I think I'm minimizing to a tickable agenda.
Right. So, ma'am, there are so many people who look up to you, students, social workers, so many people, and I'm the newest person in that group. So, please, tell me. I mean, if there is a very small girl or a boy who wants to become like you, so what would you have to say to that little child?
We know that behind every person there are stories. Okay, stories is what make us
Human.
go through and
Correct.
human who we are. Okay. Uh, while we have always asked when we go through the low phase, why me? Rarely we ask when we go through, successful phase, why me? Okay. I would say that life offers you 1 billion experience. Absorb, be a sponge, and if it is, pushing you out of comfort zone, remember that there is growth waiting for you at the end of the this experience. And if you're going through, let's say, a very challenging time, if you can have this attitude that it is preparing you for the next phase of life, and that there is a purpose for it, that is life is preparing you for something, you swell with experience. Many times educational leaders ask me, Where did you get this from? I haven't gotten it from one book, one school, one degree, one education, one travel experience,
Right.
and it definitely hasn't come because I've traveled abroad. As much as I've traveled abroad, you need to travel hinterlands because there
Correct.
is learning waiting there. Just everyday life offers. Can you be absorbing? As I often tell my Swedish students, every morning, can you open the door and come out with an empty cup? If you have an overflowing cup, life experiences that gets poured is lost. Whereas you come out with an empty cup, and every morning, figuratively,
Yeah.
I think that level of absorption is what is required.
Wonderful.
And
Yeah.
then I think, you will be able to make, you can synthesize these experiences, like right now, our students are planning on a youth summit or for a TEDx. What I notice is that our people are not really in touch with what's happening around the world, you know. I think if it's that open, that we need to,
Yeah.
and not narrow down to, textbooks and, those systems, I think you expand. And, I think for educationists, there are no irrelevant topics.
Right. That's wonderful, ma'am. So, what projects are you currently working on? And personally, what's next for you now?
I am not working on, in that sense, any extraordinary new project, I would say. I'm waiting for world to open up. So Sweden, India will reboot in terms of students traveling back.
Right.
So, but when they come back, I will have to reimagine their field practice. I can't just say, okay, now they're back and, let's just reboot, So there is reimagination is what my next project, whether it is when Swedish students come back or when our students return back, we need to reimagine how education is going to be, how we need to set priorities, and what is that we need to, what you call control, alt, delete.
It's wonderful, ma'am. Wonderful. We wish you all the, more power and all the good health to you. Thank you so much for giving us your time today.
Thank
You've been
you.
wonderful and very generous with your time.
Thank you. And wish you all the very best for your wonderful work. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. We'll see you soon. And thanks to our audience for sticking with us. Please tell us in the comment section what you think of this conversation. And I will see you in the next one. Thank you.